How you doing today? This is Med with Shots from the Sidelines, and this is our first time on Shady Network.
Oh, happy to be here, Med.
It's awesome to be
Honored
here.
to be part of Shady Sports Network.
Shady Sports Network. So, as we try to cut out the echo that is going on right now, we will introduce ourselves. I am Med. I am the host of Shots from the Sidelines, and this is my co-host, Seth.
Glad to be here. Glad to be joining you, Med. Another season on the horizon.
About an hour
from kickoff?
1 hour from kickoff, and it's just going to be interesting. I promise it's going to get better than what we are doing right in this moment.
Yeah.
But right now it's just that I got
echoes.
Yeah.
So today
we're going to be covering the top 5 teams in the NFL. These are the teams that we individually think that will be the best teams this year going into this season. We got the worst 5, which once again we think are the worst in our individual ideas. We will be predicting the best division, the worst division, division winners, and player awards at the end of the year.
Wow, that's a lot to cover.
And we're already 2 minutes in, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, top 5 teams in the NFL. You want to go back and forth with this like it's a tennis match, or do you want to just go one person at a time?
Let's go one person at a time.
All right. Well, you know what? You go first.
All right. You may start at number 5. Is that okay?
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. My number 5 team, I think they're going to bounce back in a pretty big way. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they made some good moves in the offseason. They were really beat up at the end of last season, and it showed. But they drafted a couple of good young corners, which is their biggest weakness last year. And I think a couple of those other rookies, defensive players that are now second-year players, are going to grow up and show they're a lot better than last year. So that's my number 5 team. Number 4, we've talked about it all offseason. The 49ers, I think they're still loaded, but I think they may have missed their window. They have probably one more chance before they really have to break the bank on a lot of players. Bringing back Ayuk, that was a big deal. I really thought they would lose him. So I'm going to keep them in my top 5 at number 4. Number 3, Houston Texans, the team that just kind of came out of nowhere last year. C.J. Stroud just exploded on the scene. They made a couple of big offseason moves. Danielle Hunter, Stephon Diggs. I think that team is about as loaded as it gets. They showed in the playoffs last year. You know, they're young, but they're already here and they're ready. Number 2 team, and I probably have this team a lot higher than most people, but after last year's playoff run, I think they showed that they're on the cusp, and that's the Detroit Lions. Just a absolutely loaded offense, young team, great readable coach. Made a couple good picks in the defense secondary, which is kind of like we talked about with the Eagles. That was their weakness. But I think they're ready. And then number 1, of course, defending champions, the Chiefs. I mean, it's hard to argue with it as long as Mahomes is there, as long as Kelsey's there. And that defense is just always steady. So it's hard to pick anyone else until someone proves that they can beat them.
So I'm going to go ahead and do my 5, and if you want, we'll go ahead and fire off some questions then. As far as my top 5 NFL teams is concerned, right now I'm going to go ahead and say my number 5 team is the Green Bay Packers. And the big reason why is you look at what they were able to actually add in the free agency with Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney, who I think can possibly be a candidate for the Defensive Player of the Year on the NFC side.
Great addition.
Yeah, I mean, he was great with the New York Giants. He'll just slide in right on there. They're going to be switching from a 3-4 defense to a 4-3 defense. And this past draft, I mean, they did load up on a couple different positions with safety, with Oladipo and Bullard from Georgia and everything like that. But they also got probably the best linebacker prospect and Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M. So
really good draft.
I gave him an A, in fact. So Packers are my number 5 team. With my number 4 team, I actually had the Texans. And, you look at the additions that they had in the free agency with Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs. They brought in some defensive help with Daniel Hunter, linebacker Azeez Al-Sahir, and Danick Autry, who are both from Tennessee. So they were able to actually poach those 2 players from a division rival. So, and I mean, Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, you don't really need to say who they are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple guys that seems like they complain a lot, but they're good players.
For my number 3 team, I have the 49ers. Kind of like in the same boat as you. It just felt like, what's going to happen with Eric Armstead being released from that team. I think that's going to hurt him a little bit on the inside. But they did pick up a Leonard Floyd, who has been at least a sack specialist.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
True.
But a lot of the drama that happened, of course, Parasol getting shot a couple days ago. You had the whole Ayuk drama that was playing out throughout the whole summer. But they are returning all 11 offensive starters. And, of course, if Dre Greenlaw comes back after that devastating injury in the Super Bowl, that, in my opinion, was the one that kind of switched it off for San Francisco against the Chiefs.
That was a big injury.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's going to miss some time. But once he's back and paired up with Fred Warner, it's hard to argue that they're not the best linebacking duel in football right now.
I'm a little worried about that offensive line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was already average, and now they're a little bit older. So
that one extra year really does matter a lot in football.
Yeah.
My number 2 team is the Eagles, and it's simply because you look at what they added. Also, and it's going to be an ongoing thing. You look at what their draft was. They got arguably the 2 best secondary players in Quinion Mitchell from Toledo and Cooper DeJean from Iowa. Extremely versatile, can plug him pretty much anywhere. It's just a really good draft in their part. I mean, they really addressed a lot of their issues that they had in last year, where it just felt like the boat bottom just fell out.
Yeah, it did.
And also, they brought in a guy known as Saquon Barkley.
Maybe a slight upgrade.
A little bit of an upgrade over DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, I mean, Swift was good, but they've gone from Sanders to Swift now to Barkley. So I think they've upgraded every year.
Yeah, and of course they lost a couple of their best players with Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox and Hassan Reddick and traded to the New York Jets. But they also added some depth. Mika Becton, who was actually really good with the New York Jets, came over from them. They brought in, I think, Quinsbury for center. And they also added some depth pieces with Devontae Parker, Bryce Huff, and also a recent trade for Johan Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I think their roster's improved. The Kelsey thing worries me a little bit. He was such an anchor for the offensive line for so many years. So
Definitely.
It's going to be hard to improve that position. But overall, I think they definitely improved.
So my number 1 team, same as you. I know. Shocker.
Oh, man.
When you're the Super Bowl champ, you're the number 1 team until someone knocks you off. And, Mahomes has just proved that he is the best player in the league right now. He was able to take a receiving core that had Rasheed Rice and Travis Kelce in his 10-yard dumps and won another Super Bowl against a very good defense. And, if you look at what he was able to do in the playoffs, it just solidifies that in the whole playoff thing. He beat 3 of the 4 top defenses in the league, averaging 262 yards per game, tossing 6 touchdowns and 1 interception in that time. And they upgraded a receiver with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, which is going to make it even more potent. And yes, the defense did lose Delarius Sneed and Gay, who is their middle linebacker, but True Hill was able to actually move in with no problems. And I just think they have a very good chance of at least making this Super Bowl.
Yeah. Offensive tackle is a bit of a weakness, but when you have Patrick Mahomes, you can overcome a lot. And I actually thought the defense last year was the stronger unit on that team, more so than the offense. But yeah, just losing Sneed and Gay. We saw some of those young guys last year that stepped in. That their defense is looking stout.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to argue.
And as far as like what you were talking about with the tackle position being a little shaky and everything, they are bringing in, I cannot pronounce his name. It's like Shimataya or something like that. He played at BYU, was really strong and high draft pick, second round. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll be between him and Wanya Morris for the starting tackle.
Not bad.
On the other side, Juwan Taylor.
All right. Is there anything on my list that you want to ask any questions on?
I struggle with the Packers and the Ravens. Those would probably be my 6 and 7 teams, and I couldn't decide if I wanted to put one of them at 5. But good call on the Packers. I mean, they're another team I think that showed in the playoffs. They really should have beat, was it San Francisco? No,
yes.
They wiped out the Cowboys and played well against the 49ers. For a young team, that's pretty impressive.
And you're right. I mean, it was impressive in the fact that they were able to do what they have. They're such a young team. I mean, they don't have a true number one receiver right now. I do like Jaden Reed. I do like Romeo Dobbs, Wicks. They got good
Watson.
tight ends. So, and Kraft and Musgrave. So I got to add that part in so that doesn't come out wrong.
Yeah.
But the Ravens, to me, they had a good draft. In fact,
They always do.
Yeah, they had a really good draft, but they lost a lot of leadership on that defense with Geno Stone leaving, going to rival Cincinnati Bengals, and then Patrick Queen going up to Pittsburgh. So you look at that. I think they added another weapon in Tez Walker, but I think that they're going to have an AFC Championship hangover.
Yeah. What do you expect from Derrick Henry? You think he has anything left?
Well, yeah, he definitely has it left. I mean, he's going to a team that has a much better offensive line than what he had at Tennessee.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he's the missing piece.
All right.
So now for the top 5 worst teams.
Top worst teams. 5 teams. You want to go first? Or you want me
You
to
go first this time.
All right. So my number 5 team is the New Orleans Saints. The Derek Carr, Dennis Allen thing last year kind of blew up. He didn't play bad,
All right.
but they still sucked. And, they were in the playoff hunt at the very end right there, but you really felt like they should have been able to do a lot more with that combination. My number 4 team is the Tennessee Titans. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be on you as well. They just seem to have overpaid on 2 of their free agents with Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley. And, they have a good defense. Of course, Snead went there. You look at Will Levis, who is he the answer? That's the big question as far as in Nashville goes. But, he's better than Daniel Jones, which will lead me to my 3rd team because if you ever watched us on anything, you'll learn that I did not really ever care for Daniel Jones.
Oh, man, you hate Daniel Jones.
Yeah, so they do have neighbors, but it really feels like what it did when Detroit only had Calvin Johnson. But, other than that, they brought in Devin Singletary. It really just feels like they're going to sell it for this year, and their future quarterback is going to probably be like Carson Beck from Georgia in the next year's draft.
Yeah, could be.
Number 2, is actually the Carolina Panthers. A lot of people would be like, man, they are the worst team. But I think there is one team that is worse than them. But to just be honest, Panthers have a lot of things that they could actually look up to. They have some rookies and Jonathan Brooks, Xavier Leggett, that will really help that team shine later down the road. Dante Johnson came in. We'll see what he could do there. And they tried to really upgrade their offensive line to give Bryce Young a little bit more than 2 seconds in the pocket. My worst team is the New England Patriots.
Ooh.
Yeah. Rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, rookie number one receiver, rookie number 2 receiver. Ramondre Stevenson is pretty much the only veteran presence that they have on their offense other than their offensive line. Their defense, they traded away Matthew Judon, who was their biggest sack guy there. I just think it's going to be a hot dumpster fire for this first season.
For Mayo, it's going to be a tough rookie season.
It's going to be a rough year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree on that. I didn't have them that low, but all right. Well, a couple of slight differences. I'm going to go with the Vikings at number 5. I'm just not a believer in Sam Darnold. I think he's had a lot of chances in different places. He's never really shown anything. I do like some of the pieces on the Vikings offense, and I love the pick of Dallas Turner on defense. But I think they just have too many holes, and quarterback is the most important position. That's such a tough division. I mean, you're talking 6 games against really good teams just in your division. So I got them at 5. Number 4, I've got the Patriots. Pretty much you covered everything that needs to be covered. I guess I'm just giving them a little more credit just because of the Patriots, and I've never seen them be horrible. So I think May started to look a little bit better late in the preseason. But yeah, they're not going to be good. Number 3, I've got the Giants. I think that's where you had them, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I think Daniel Jones might bounce back slightly, but he's still a very average quarterback, very flawed quarterback. And losing Barkley, going to Singletary, that's a pretty big downgrade. I do think Neighbors will be good. And the defense has a few good pieces, but losing McKinley, that was a big loss. So, number 2, I'm going the Broncos. Did you have the Broncos on your list?
I should have had the Broncos on there.
Man, Broncos. It's just been downhill fast for them. I do think Sean Payton will have them a little bit improved, but not enough. And, with the rookie quarterback, he's going to take some lumps. I mean, I think he'll make some good plays, but he'll make a lot of mistakes. I just looked at the roster, and I don't see a lot of Pro Bowl elite players on there. Running back, Javonte Williams just can't ever stay healthy. They lost Judy, which isn't a big deal, but you don't really have a stud wide receiver. Offensive line, lost Cushenberry. I could go on and on, but the Broncos roster, I think, it was just a complete rebuild for Peyton. And then my number 1 team, I hate to do it, living in Carolina, the Panthers. I think they'll be improved, maybe win a couple more games this year. I think Bryce Young is going to bounce back. I like a couple of the draft picks. We get wide receiver will help. I like picking up Deontay Johnson, but just not enough. I mean, they're just so bad at so many positions. Defensive line, I kind of like their defensive line. So that's something. Picking up a couple they overpaid for a couple offensive line pieces, but
Robert Hill.
That should help a little.
So the big question I have for you is when you brought it up, the Vikings, I was actually kind of surprised. The Broncos, I should have definitely had in my top 5, but especially with the quarterback situation. But it looked like Bo Nix was actually doing pretty good.
He looked pretty good in preseason, but you can't take anything from preseason.
Yeah, it's preseason.
Take it with a grain of salt.
So my question on the Vikings, of course, with J.J. McCarthy, who just completely killed it in his one game that he actually played other than 1 interception. In fact, when we were talking about it, we were like, oh, yeah, we should have talked about that. The first play that I saw with his highlight film was that interception. It feels like they have a little bit more optimism than what the other 4 teams that you have right there. So you said Sam Darnold. Do you just think that it's going to be a rough sailing for this year because of the whole fact that JJ McCarthy's not going to be there?
For me, it's just really based on quarterback primarily. I think it's going to be a really tough schedule in that division. It's not like they're playing in the NFC South.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of toss-up games. I think clearly those other three teams in the division are head and shoulders above the Vikings. They still had Cousins or still had a good quality quarterback. I love the receivers. And I think Aaron Jones probably has a little bit left in the tank. It wasn't a bad pickup.
Right.
So, defensively, they were still the 31st ranked pass rush unit, which hopefully Dallas Turner will help with that. But you did lose to Neil Hunter. So, you didn't really gain much there. So, yeah, I agree. You probably have more optimism because once JJ McCarthy comes back
next year,
hopefully, he'll be the man there. But I just don't believe in Darnold at all.
No, I don't think anyone really believes in Darnold. He sees ghost. So, all right. So we actually went through that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We're sitting at 20 minutes right now. We'll add some football games, do what we did last year, where we actually do some predictions, keep a score, see how we do, and everything like that. And if anyone wants to actually comment on anything that is going on, please, by all means, hit the comments. We definitely like to interact with people. And, first day on the job over here at Shady. So,
yeah.
So moving on to division winners, we can actually go with who do you think is the best division, who you think is the worst division.
Okay.
Which one would you want to go with first?
Let's go with the best division.
Okay, who do you think is the best division?
So you're probably going to laugh, but I've been pimping the NFC North for a while.
Yes, you have.
All off season. But I did a little deep dive, and after at least 15 minutes of research, I'm going to go with the AFC North instead.
Okay.
Then you had 3 out of 4 playoff teams last year. Bengals almost certainly would have been in there also had Burrow not got hurt. I think a case has been made that 3 out of the 4 teams improved their roster, especially the Steelers.
Right.
Ravens, maybe not, but I think the other 3 did. I know Wilson and Fields, they're not great quarterbacks, but compared to the mess the Steelers have had at quarterback, it should be an improvement.
It's an upgrade over Kenny.
Yeah. The Bengals, I think, improved slightly with Geno Stone, Sheldon Rankins, Zach Moss coming in. I actually think Zach Moss will be an upgrade over Mixon. I'm just not a big Mixon guy.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy, they're a playoff team. No question.
Exactly.
Browns, they really couldn't do much because of their cap situation. But they didn't lose much either. Just a couple of decent linebackers and, of course, Joe Flacco.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bush and Hicks coming in is a slight upgrade for them at linebacker. And the wide receiver core should get a little boost from Judy coming in, even though he's nothing special.
He saw the look I gave him.
Yeah, as long as somebody's got to help Cooper out. The Ravens, once again, they'll probably be the most people's favorite in the division. But they're the one team I think regressed a little, as you already covered. Because of the cap crunch, they had to make some tough choices on defense. The addition of Derrick Henry, that's the key. If he still has some juice left, one good season, then I think that can offset some of the defensive losses because they need a stud in the backfield. They've had guys, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, who never could stay healthy. So he should be an upgrade there. But, yeah, overall that division is just stout. There's not a team on there that I see a lot of weaknesses on.
No. And 3 of them went to the playoffs last year, so that's a really good.
I expect 3 to go this year.
Ooh, hang on for that when we actually talk about our playoff teams. I like that, and like you were pimping the AFC North. I was pimping the AFC North. I actually switched it up last night when I was looking at it. So my top division right now, and it's basically because I could see them having 3 teams in the playoffs myself is the AFC East. And, right now you're looking at 3 teams, which are the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills, and the Miami Dolphins that can potentially take that number 1 spot in that division. It ain't like what you said with the NFC South where they all suck. But these are three teams that, you got Aaron Rodgers. Will his Achilles be fully healed, and will he be able to play more than 4 plays? Will Tua actually stay off the ground for more than 2 seconds? Will Josh Allen find another target outside of Stephon Diggs? There's just a lot of intrigue there, but they've been there. And, it's just one of those things outside where you look at these three teams that are, for the lack of a better term, at least 2 of them with the Dolphins and the Jets, who seem to be going all in on this season.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Bills, who are doing a mini rebuild, but not really. And then you have, because as far as free agents go, they brought in Curtis Samuel. They already had Shakir that was really good, and they spent their highest draft pick on Keon Coleman from Florida State to help solidify Josh Allen's receiving core.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at basically just New England as the only team that's honestly rebuilding in that whole division. But I could see 3 of those teams making the playoffs, just like how you could see 3 teams in the AFC North making the playoffs.
To me, the most interesting aspect of this season is, what are we going to get from Aaron Rodgers?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see enough of him last year to have a clue. He's in his 40s now, coming back from a pretty serious injury. That team is really good outside of the quarterback position. If he is even close to what he was, then I agree they should be a playoff team. And we already know the Dolphins and Bills are playoff teams.
So my worst. So I actually spent more than 15 minutes thinking about this. Kudos to you for 15 minutes of research, sir. He does it for you, folks.
Yeah. I like to put in the time for the show.
So I was going between the AFC West, and the only reason why I say that, folks, is because you look at what the teams are at their current state. You got the Broncos, which
trash.
You look at the Raiders, who seem to be on the rise, and the Chargers seem to be on the rise as well because they got rid of the person that was making them trash last year.
Just because of the coach upgrade, they should be on the rise.
But I'm not going to lie. I already talked about 2 of their teams being the top worst 5 teams in the NFL, so it's definitely the NFC South. Right now you look at the Falcons, they seem to be a really strong contender to challenge for that NFC South title, which, is it a challenge? You do have the Bucs, who are, re-signed Baker Mayfield, that re-signed Mike Evans to big contracts to keep him, especially Mike Evans. But the man has had 10 seasons of 1,000 yards. Ever since he's been in the NFL, he's been a 1,000-yard receiver. That's extremely impressive.
Yeah, at his age, that season he put up last year was so impressive.
Magical for the Bucs. But what hasn't been magical is the coaching and quarterback carousel that is up in Charlotte, where the Panthers play. And then, like I said, the garbage fire. Drew Brees retired 4 years ago from the New Orleans Saints, and it feels like 20. It's just,
it does feel like it's been a long time.
It is so bad right now. And, you look at how much money they spent on Derek Carr, which was, I believe, was it 160 or 150 or something like that?
Yeah, in that range.
It was too much.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
He did start playing better towards the end of the year, so maybe he turned, maybe he's on the rise.
He's on the rise.
He just started out slow.
He
turned the corner. That's what I was trying to think of.
It was always one of those things where people would talk about with how he played over at the Raiders, though, and they would say, that he is mid, but he always had decent numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And, when he first went over to Derek Carr, I was high up on the Saints winning that division.
Yeah, everybody was.
It was just like, okay, these guys could potentially make the NFC Championship. And then the season started.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that
Well, I don't think anybody predicted the drop-off of Kamara. Maybe it was just an off year with little minor injuries, but, man, his drop-off was huge last year.
Well, maybe he was just exhausted from, trying to stomp people's heads in.
Well, their cap situation has just been horrible for years now, and they're finally starting to come out of it a little bit. I do like the draft, picking up Flauga.
Right.
I may have butchered his name, but I think that was a really good pick. I love Olave. Is it Rashid, the other receiver?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the receivers. So, I pretty much agree. As far as the worst division, it's hard to argue. The AFC West, yeah, it's not strong, but you do have the defending, two-time champions or back-to-back champions in that division. I can't see Tampa replicating last year. I think it was just everything came together for them. Everybody had their best year somehow. I mean, Baker Mayfield I don't think anybody predicted he was going to have that kind of year. So I think there's going to be some drop-off from Tampa. I do agree that Falcons, though, I don't want to sound like a homer, but they have all the pieces, to make a playoff run in that division. Let's just see if it happens. Just like Rodgers, Cousins has to stay healthy. And Bijan needs to make a jump. I mean, he got pushed as the next great back, and last year he was just okay. So, I mean, London, Pitts, guys that look great on the field, they just got to show it now.
At least now they have the quarterback to actually do it. Kirk Cousins, yeah, he's up there in age, and y'all did draft Michael Penix Jr. last year in the draft, but at the same time, when you have Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota, you're not exactly thinking of a gunslinger in the backfield.
Yeah, I still regret that move. I feel like if they would have taken the defensive end, Turner might have been gone at that pick, but I know Verse was still there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Turner was picked after Verse.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, wait, I think Turner was picked 17th and Verse was picked.
So they're both 19th. Still there. Yeah, I still regret that move. I mean, I think Penix will be a good quarterback down the road, but they need to get there now. And that kind of defensive end would have made a huge boost to this defense.
And that's why y'all got Matthew Judon.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll see.
So we just talked about top division. We talked about the worst division. Let's talk about division winners. Let's talk about who do we think is going to be the top. Now, we already kind of discussed a little bit about this, and we'll tabletop it. NFC North, who you got winning that division?
Well, I mean, there's two really, really good teams, two young teams, but I'm going to go with the Lions since I picked them number 2 in my power rankings.
It's a good reason.
I don't know. I just like the Lions' explosiveness just a little more. Mm-hmm. I think the Packers probably have better depth. We talked about all the good receivers they have, but I think with Amon St. Brown, you've got a true superstar at receiver. And I think Gibbs at running back has superstar potential also. Nothing against Jacobs, but I think Gibbs has that kind of explosion.
I agree.
You got to take it to the house at any time. Defensively, they improved. So did the Packers. So I think it'll be a tight race, one of the funnest races to watch this season in that division. But I got the Lions.
No. And sticking with the same division, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers, which kind of sucks because you can tell what team, who's my team. But I'm realistic. And, the draft that they had, like you said, they were able to address a lot of things on the Lions defense, especially with they have a great safety tandem in the back. They got Aiden Hutchinson. They really tried to work on their defense as much as they've worked on their offense the last few years. Mm-hmm. Now they're just trying to bring that up. Same thing with the Packers. You look at what Love did, who got an extremely huge contract for what a lot of people feel was really just an 8-game stretch where he just killed it.
That must be nice to get that kind of contract off of 1 year.
Or a half a year in some people's eyes. But he earned it. And you look at the receiving core, there's not a number 1 on there, but there's a lot of solid pieces. And when they brought in Josh Jacobs, which I talked about earlier, they got a running game. I mean, they had one last year with Aaron Jones, thank you. They had one with him last year. He always seems to blow up against the Bears. We'll see if he does it again with Minnesota, but he was always hurt, it felt like. Mm-hmm. And with Josh Jacobs, he does that up and down thing with how he has a great season and an off season, great season, off season. He is due for a on season. So fantasy wise, if you believe in that trend, pick him up, because he's going to blow up with a much better offensive line than what they had in Las Vegas. Staying with the North, we're going to AFC. What you got?
I'm going to stick with the Ravens. I mean, I know I said they're the only team that didn't really improve this all season, but I still think they're still in as the highest. With Lamar Jackson running the show, Zay Flowers, I think really showed he's a promising young player. They picked up Walker. So they're finally better at receiver. For years they were so weak at receiver. So, yeah, with Derrick Henry there now, that offense should be pretty loaded. And we know the defense, even though they lost some pieces, they always find a way to plug those holes on defense.
Mhm.
So I'll go Ravens.
I'm also going Ravens, even though you look at the rest of the teams, and the main reason why is because I look at those teams. Deshaun Watson hasn't been the same ever since he left Houston. I guess they're just rubbing all of his problems out of his muscles down there. Joe Burrow has the injury issue, although he is the only quarterback in the modern NFL that is active that beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, the other being Tom Brady, who, of course, retired. Pittsburgh, they have the defense. They have a decent running game. They have, I would say a star receiver in George Pickens, but it's really a big question mark on what's going on with their quarterbacks. Of course, me being a Bears fan, I saw Justin Fields for 3 years, and I'm not sure. But if they were actually work out the kinks, or if Russell Wilson looks at least somewhat like he did when he first started in the NFL, they have a chance. But Baltimore just seems like they're just too talented. They really just lose it just now.
Yeah. I think they got one more year left in them.
All right.
As the clear favorite in that division.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what happens with Burrow's wrist, if he can actually stay healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, they they lost Tyler Boyd, but then they got Jermaine Burton, who I know you love. And
I do love some Burton.
You do love some Burton. He's a Tennessee fan. I'm an Alabama fan. So.
I do think that was a good pick. I mean, he's shown in preseason. He's
you just
a
don't
player.
like that he hit a female Tennessee Vol.
Yeah.
The guy in his face.
Yeah.
You don't hit a woman. Not condoning that. All right, let's head west. As far as the NFC West, what you got?
Ooh, NFC West. I mean, it's hard to go against the 49ers. I know I do like what the Rams showed last year. That kind of came out of nowhere, too. The Rams really had a good season.
I do like the Rams.
So I'm not saying it's not doable. I think the Rams have a chance, but I'll still go with the Niners. That roster is still one of the most talented in the league. Bringing back Ayuk was a big deal. When everybody was assuming he was gone, I was thinking, they might take a little step back this year. But I think they're still the head of the class in that division.
And, yeah, I mean, I don't really see Seattle doing anything. Arizona is still rebuilding. They had a great draft this past draft with, of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. and then also selecting Darian Robinson from Mizzou later on in the first round.
If Murray stays healthy, that should be a fun team to watch.
Yes. No, I'm looking forward to seeing what they were able to do. But it's the 49ers. I mean, it seems like, hopefully the whole drama thing that went between Trent Williams, who is arguably the best left tackle in the game. You got the best receiver in the game. You got a top 10 quarterback and Brock Purdy, to be honest.
Hold on. Best receiver in the game. Oh, you mean best running back?
Best running back.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I am sorry.
Devo?
Devo's the best, not Brandon Ayuk. But you look at that, top 5 tight end. You can arguably say 2 receivers that could be top 20. I mean, it's there, and they got the quarterback that actually can, he's basically the ringleader of the circus. And, Parasol, whenever he gets healthy, he'll be just another weapon. I mean, I was kind of shocked that he drafted them in the first round, but that's a different story.
That was kind of surprising.
But
I mean, he only got shot one time. I mean,
time can be only enough. I mean,
Ron Robinson over here with the Commanders is like, what about me? I got shot like 10 times.
Yeah, I was going to say, he got popped in the legs. His career was almost over before it started. But you brought up the Rams, and I mean, the only thing that I see with the Rams is that they're a young team. They got some good veterans and everything. I think eventually they're going to have to look and see who they can actually replace Stafford with. Hopefully,
Stetson.
It better not be Stetson. But no, it's going to be the 49ers. And with the West, I'm pretty sure we're going to pick the same team. So I'll just go ahead and start that by saying it's Kansas City. I mean, it's no shock right there.
Man, I had to think about that one.
Yeah, I mean, we already kind of talked about them a little bit, but we could talk a little bit about the other teams like the Chargers, who of course brought in Jim Harbaugh and starting to really change the identity of that team. I think he will be pretty successful. Will he make the playoffs? ESPN thinks he will. I don't think he will.
I don't think so either.
No, I think Lade is going to be like one of those guys that is really going to launch it. As far as you could probably actually look at him potentially being an offensive player of the year, but I didn't pick him. But now I'm thinking about that. But you look at that, you look at the Raiders and what they're able to do. They brought in Christian Wilkins to help out Max Crosby, so he's not kind of a one-man defense with them. And then you have, of course, the dumpster fire in Denver, which, Bo Nix, he looked good in the preseason. Like you said earlier, though, it's the preseason.
Right.
It's just too many question marks. And it just seems like, will Sean Payton be there after this year? I know some people think that he's the greatest coach in the world, but you just alienated a quarterback who a lot of people weren't really high on, but was still having a decent year. So, I mean, and then you're going to be saddled with $87 million in dead cap the next 2 years.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
That franchise is falling so far.
Didn't the family from Walmart buy them?
I didn't even realize that.
I guess they're rolling back.
If they got a good deal. Yeah, I mean, clearly, Chiefs, that's probably the easiest call in the whole league as far as division winner. Who do you got after that? What division you want to go to?
Oh, we'll head south.
Let's go. AFC?
Let's go AFC first. You go ahead and take it. And, folks, we got 19 more minutes. So if you're still with us, we do appreciate that. And, if you want to talk about, like, at the very end, we're going to be talking about Super Bowl prediction, who we think is going to make it and who's going to win it. If you want to go ahead and in the comments just say, hey, this is who I think it is. Go ahead, bud.
All right, AFC South. I think this is a pretty easy choice too. I've got the Texans. I do think the Jaguars and the Colts will bounce back a little bit. Two teams that kind of started strong out of the gate and then just had a rough end of the season. I know it's preseason, but Trevor looked really good preseason. Ingram has just turned his career around. So I think the Jaguars will play better this year, but Texans
they just added too much.
They added too many good pieces, and they were already really good. CJ Stroud, what else can you say? The guy is just
record-setting
first year for a rookie, and I expect more of the same the sophomore year. So yeah, give me the Texans.
Like you, I am a Texans guy on this one. Tennessee ain't gonna do much. If they do, I mean, it's like maybe 6 wins, if that. I think they're in the running for potentially getting the first-round pick or first overall pick next year in the draft. Jacksonville, they're like the biggest question mark. Like last year, they had the record was 8-3, and they were like 3 games up on everyone else. And once Christian Kirk went down, and I think that's what influenced the Brian Thomas Jr. pick, they just fell apart. And the defense was getting run through like shit through a goose, and it's just one of those deals where you kind of just like, okay, what are they? And then you also have the Colts, which, shocker, folks, we both are SEC fans, and we're both not extremely high on Anthony Richardson. He might be a fantasy football darling, but I just don't see unless he can get his accuracy, because he only had 46% of his passes completed at Florida. Once he gets that up, then I think y'all might be all right. But
yeah, and I mean, truly, this is like his rookie year after only playing a couple games last year.
I mean, he killed it, but a lot of people don't realize he killed it on the ground.
Yeah,
he was a great dual threat that ran the ball, and he kind of reminded me of a young Cam Newton, just not accurate. So
yeah, and he got hurt early, so
2 games done.
He can't run that much.
No, he needs to learn how to slide. But yeah, Houston for the South and NFC South, sir.
NFC South. I'm gonna go with my team, Falcons. I think they made enough acquisitions and improvements. Even though I didn't like the first round pick. Just think that there's no way Tampa's going to replicate last year. They got multiple players. There's no way Baker's going to play that again. I would say Evans is older, but he just keeps playing good. So I think it'll be between those two. I got the Falcons just by a tad. I think Bijan is going to break out this year, and hopefully with quality quarterback play, you're going to see guys like Pitts and London finally show their true potential.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. I think it's going to be Atlanta simply because of what they went out and did. I mean, they spent 60? Was it 160?
180 for Cousins. Okay.
Well, they spent a lot of money for the guy that they want to actually keep their quarterback seat hot until Penix is ready. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing exactly what the Green Bay Packers have done for the last 30 years.
And you mentioned Judon earlier. That was a big deal
Huge
just a couple weeks ago. That was one position, the pass rush, that the Falcons have been horrible at for 5 years.
Yeah, and the rest of the defense has been solid. I mean, it's not like they're scrubs.
We could use another good corner. But
But at the same time, I mean, you just didn't have pressure. I mean, that really kind of lays into that. Going to the East. Well, let's go AFC East.
You want to go first, sir?
I went with the Jets. It's just, and I mean, that's really going down a limb. I know I have an idea who you went with, and they're much further south, but
Deep South.
Deep South. I just think that, if Aaron Rodgers, and this is a huge if, I mean, not many quarterbacks that are in their 40s comes back from an Achilles injury that, pretty much at one point was a career ender. But if Tyron Smith is the Great Wall of China that everyone is saying that he is, then in all honesty, I could really see them really bouncing back. They went out and got some good players. Mike Williams will be there for about 4 games before his ACL tears out.
Yep.
Brees Hall looks like really, he really came on towards the end of the year last year. That defense, that defense could potentially be your top defense this year.
Yeah.
Stamp that. Because they also got Hassan Reddick from Philadelphia, which we mentioned earlier. And it just seems like all the cards are lining up for him. Now, will they make Super Bowl? But we'll discuss that later. What you got?
I just don't trust Aaron Rodgers at his age, coming off that injury, to be a top-tier quarterback. I think he will be, obviously, an improvement over Zach Wilson, who was
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, just pretty bad. One of the worst draft picks of the last decade. So, I think they'll be much improved, but I'm going to go with the Dolphins. I'm not a huge Tua guy, but he is a good regular season quarterback, and that team's pretty loaded. You just look at the playmakers they have, just Tyreek Hill, A-Chain. I love that
running back room is just sick.
Yeah, Mostert, picking up Jalen Wright. I mean, just loaded on offense. As long as the offensive line can stay healthy. And defensively, I know they lost Wilkins, but they're still pretty stout over there on defense. I mean, that was a good pick.
Yeah.
So give me the Dolphins. I mean, I just think the Bills have too many changes and too many new faces. Obviously, you still have the best quarterback in the division with Josh Allen, but I think the Dolphins have a little bit better overall team.
No, I could ride with that. You're basically picking concussions over a Achilles.
I mean, last year, too, I think finally learned he's just got to get rid of the ball immediately, which he did. I don't know. There can't be a quarterback that releases the ball as fast as Tua on a regular basis. He just gets it out like slants post.
It feels a little bit like Marino again.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
not as good. I'm not saying Tua's up there with Marino.
Oh, thank you for pointing that up.
Yeah, no. I mean, Bama fan, but I'll be honest with you, I was not even a big Tua fan when he was with Bama. So
I'm not down on Tua. I just don't think he has the ceiling of your top tier quarterbacks.
He's the Dak Prescott of the AFC.
That's a good comparison.
See, we agree.
And now we're going to the NFC East.
NFC East.
Or the NFC Least.
It's going to be a little more competitive, at least for unless you're a Giants fan, you're going to have a long year. I do like what the Giants did with bringing in Brian Burns. That defensive line is just it could potentially be a leader in sacks this year between him, Lawrence, and Thibodeau. But this is Philly's division. And, I picked them number 2. There's a huge reason why. They upgraded everything. Yes, they slumped towards the end of the year. Yes, their defense didn't match the personnel that they had. But you can learn from your mistakes, which I think they did.
Mm-hmm.
And, Jordan Davis, for all the flack that I've given him, he did look like he needed an oxygen mask after every play, it seems like last year. And Jalen Carter was a rookie. That's two guys that have a combined 3 years of NFL experience before tonight's game or tomorrow's game.
Yeah, they had an odd mix of really old players and really young players on defense. I think some of those guys grow up this year.
And, the Commanders, they got Jaden Daniels, who I think will be at least I'm not doing the NFC, but I consider him an offensive rookie of the year this coming season. That's my prediction on that. Then you have the Cowboys, who just do great during the regular season, but just crap the bed whenever the postseason rolls around. And it is what it is. You got Dak Prescott, aka Tony Romo 2.0, and
as a Cowboys fan, I don't want to take too long, but after that just beat down by the Packers last year, what did they do in the offseason that has really given you a lot of hope?
They had a decent draft. They went in and they got some offensive linemen, but other than that, they didn't do shit. And, you release Tyron Smith because of cap reasons. Every time you heard them actually talk about it looks like they're just bracing for the 3 contracts that they're going to have to sign with Micah Parsons, Dak Prescott, and CeeDee Lamb, which CeeDee Lamb's already signed.
Yeah.
But
I just don't know if Prescott, Lamb, or Parsons can possibly play better.
They did. You look at what they did last year. It was supposed to be their year.
Yeah.
With Dallas Cowboys fans, love you, bro, but every year's your year.
What are you shot out at running back? Dowdle?
Sherman Sauce Deacon, Rico Dotto, which Rico Dotto can be one of your fantasy studs as far as that's concerned. But we will talk about fantasy football at another time.
I'm getting us off track. Sorry.
Hey, what's up, Dennis Cockerman in the house?
Hey, Dennis. Thanks for joining the show.
Yeah. This is actually the band that Isaac and I interviewed on Blitz.
Oh, sweet.
So, really cool dude. Should have you on here with me and Seth. He has country songs. He actually will be at the NFL draft this coming season, debuting another song. And I know I just messed up saying debut, but he was actually at the NFL draft this past year, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, Tailgate. Trying to think. Tailgate Crazy, I believe, is the name of the song.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah. Love to the trailer park, bro. Last thing we got on the plate, and we got 7 minutes to do this. We can do this. Is we're going to be actually predicting players. Did you already say your East?
Did I? Well, I'm going Philadelphia also. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Philly.
Yeah.
All right. So you go ahead and start. You tell me we're going to go with Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player, your MVP for the league.
Ooh. Man, that's a lot.
And then the Super Bowl prediction. You don't have to sit there and give me a speech on each one, but just go ahead and go through it.
So Offensive Player of the Year for the NFC. It'd be easy to go with McCaffrey again. That's a good choice every year. But I'm going to go with the recently extended CeeDee Lamb Cowboys. His numbers last year were staggering, even after he kind of started slow the first couple games. By far, Prescott's main target, so he's going to see just a ton of volume. But he's also a big play threat from anywhere on the field, that tremendous speed. I think a deeper run to the playoffs would solidify his standing as the number 1 overall receiver in the game. I think that title has belonged to Jefferson the past couple years, but I think Lamb's about to take it. So, yeah, that's my Offensive Player of the Year. Defensive, did you want to do your offensive? Or?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Defensive Player of the Year, I hate to pick back-to-back Cowboys, but I can't think of another defensive player that can take over a game more so than Micah Parsons. Even with the constant double teams, he had 16 sacks and insane 103 pressures last year. There's other good candidates like Bosa and Hutchinson, but this guy I think is in a league of his own. NFC Rookie of the Year, and this should be a slam dunk unless something crazy happens. I think Caleb Williams from USC walks into the best situation in Chicago. He's got 3 really good receivers. Young offensive line showed big improvement last year, and they added Swift at running back, which I think is an upgrade. Komet at tight end, he's no slouch either. So I expect Williams to have top 10 numbers right off the bat. I mean, I love Harrison and I love Neighbors, but I think they have to depend on a quarterback to get on the ball, and Williams has the ball in his hands every play. Comeback player of the year, I might be reaching, but the new head coach at Carolina, he turned around Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield the last 2 years. So I think it's Bryce Young's turn. I know it's only his second year, so to call him a comeback player of the year is kind of weird, but everyone last year, I think, crapped all over him, especially considering how good C.J. Stroud was in Houston. But with an improved offensive line and a dependable receiver, Deontay Johnson coming on board, I think Dave Canales will get the best out of Young. So
The defensive
player
player.
of the year, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Rookie, I'm going to go with Jared Verse for the Rams. I mean, I think a lot of people are picking Dallas Turner, which that's a really good choice also. I just think Verse 2 years ago showed tremendous explosion in getting to the quarterback, and I thought he would have come out then. But for some reason, he came back to Florida State last year. And I think on that Rams defense, paired with Byron Young on the other side, I think it's going to be a tremendous duo rushing the passer. MVP for the league, it's all going to be on his back this year, which is nothing new for Josh Allen. But I think he's up to the task. He really showed out last year, I think, running the ball. I think he scales that back a little this year. He took a lot of hits. And then as far as what they added, they brought in Samuel, brought in the rookie Coleman, and I think you'll see a big improvement from Dalton Kincaid at tight end. Of course, you lost Diggs and you lost Gabe Davis, but
you're not missing much.
Yeah,
of that.
I don't think they really regressed on the receiver part of the team. So I'm going to go to Josh Allen.
I like it. So with the AFC, I got the joy of that, and I actually did the NFC last night. So
when you told me to take NFC,
I did. So with what I did is I basically was going off of what I did. But my offensive player of the year, I have Josh Allen. So I mean, you're in that agreement with him potentially being the man in Buffalo. I mean, he's the man already.
Yeah.
Defensive player of the year, I think Roquan Smith will be actually taking this one, because with Patrick Quinn going back up there, that's only going to make his stats pop that much more. So I think that he will actually go on with that one. As far as offensive rookie of the year, I have Brian Thomas Jr. on here, but because what I was discussing earlier and everything, I'm going to go with Lade McConkey.
Okay.
I just think that, Justin Herbert's going to really find like a kindred spirit with him, basically beside his shoulders and everything like that. Not like Jason Watson, but
well, they don't have much else at receivers.
Exactly. So. That him and Josh Palmer. I mean, Quinn Johnson will drop so many 50-yard bombs every time. Defensive rookie of the year, I picked Nate Wiggins for Baltimore. I just think that, he's going into a very good situation. I mean, the defense is already great, and he had the best 40 out of all the corners, and he was pretty much locked down throughout college.
Clemson, right?
Clemson, yeah. My comeback player of the year, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, 4 plays. If he actually does the whole season, that's going to be amazing. And as far as the MVP goes, I have Patrick Mahomes. I think if Hollywood actually gets healthy and can actually play maybe 14, 15 games or something like that with Xavier Worthy, you got 2 deep shots right there. You got Rasheem Rice. They got rid of Tony and everyone else that can't catch the ball, which was last year. And Kelsey, if he gets a little bit of time away from Tay, he might actually have the energy to play. But
I just love when above average players give themselves a nickname like Hollywood. I feel like you need to play better and stay healthy.
You gotta have 1,000 yards
for a full season, before you just declare yourself Hollywood.
So 1 minute left. We did really good. First show,
Sweet.
Shady Sports Network. Your Super Bowl prediction, sir.
Ooh, we going just the 2 teams or just winner?
2 teams.
Ooh, well, like we talked about, it's hard to pick against the Chiefs after the last few years. I mean, somebody's got to prove they can beat them. They beat the Ravens on the road last year, took their best shot. So it's hard for me to pick anyone else in the AFC. I got them going against the Lions. The Lions are just my second favorite team right now behind the Falcons, and just loaded on offense. As long as Goff can keep playing like he has been, which is somewhat of a question mark. Can he possibly play as good as he played last year? But I think with all those weapons and the defense improved, I think that'll be a great Super Bowl.
Yep. So I also had the Chiefs, which I kind of foreshadowed earlier in the talk. I think that they have a really good chance of getting that close to a three-peat, but I think they're going to lose to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I mean, it's just, to me, it just feels like if big question for me, and I said this a couple months ago, is what would the standing for Patrick Mahomes be if he actually three-peats? Well, a lot of people look at him as more closer to the number one than what most people want to say. Or, I mean,
Yeah, I already got him in my top 5. I think he would immediately go in the top 3 if they win another one.
So, I got a lot of flack for putting him at 4, trust me. So, but yeah, that does it for right now. And once again, thank you, Shady Sports Network, for bringing us on. It's been great. I'll make some catchy catchphrase, and then I'll have Seth sign us out. But until then, y'all have a nice day.
See everybody.
Oh, Chiefs or Ravens?
Oh, I forgot. They're probably playing right now, aren't they?
No, they're about to.
I'm going to go Ravens just because it's the regular season. Revenge game.
I'm going to go Chiefs. And next week, we'll actually predict 5 games. We'll actually bring that back, and we'll start keeping track of it.
Let's do it.
All right.
Night, guys.
Good night.